In the winter of 1944, my right hand got torn up pretty bad. I don't want to go into how, not yet. But I want you to understand the shape it was in when they finally got me to the field hospital. There were men worse off than me, a lot of men. The surgeon was exhausted. I could see it in the way he stood, like his back had been carrying something heavier than a man should carry. He unwrapped my hand. He looked at it for a long time without saying anything. Then he looked at me, and I thought, and I was absolutely certain, that he was going to ask someone to hand him the saw. I'm 95 years old, and I still see his face. My name is Walter Greer. I was born in 1930, in a small town in rural Ohio that you've never heard of and probably couldn't find on a map. Population maybe 400 people, one church, one school, one gas station that also sold fishing bait. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand who I was before all of it happened. Before Europe, before the war, before that field hospital. I was just a kid. I enlisted in 1950 when the Korean War broke out. I know people think of World War II when they think of my generation, but my war was Korea. The forgotten war, they call it. Forgotten. I've spent 70 years trying to forget it, and I never managed a single night. So I'm going to tell you what happened. All of it. The cold, the fighting, the hand, and the surgeon who made a choice that I'm still grateful for every single morning I wake up and flex these fingers. I don't have forever left. None of us do. So listen close. Before I shipped out, my father took me behind the barn on a Sunday evening. He didn't say much. My dad was a farmer, a big, quiet man with hands like shovels, and a face that had been sunburned so many times it had just given up being anything other than red and weathered. He'd served in the Second World War, came back, never talked about it. That evening he put one of those big hands on my shoulder and he said, "You do what you're told. You look after the man next to you, and you come home." That was it. That was the whole speech. I was 19 years old, 160 pounds, soaking wet. I'd never been further from home than Columbus. I thought I knew what hard felt like. Winters on a farm, baling hay in August heat, getting up before light every single morning. I didn't know anything. Basic training at Fort Riley, Kansas. 8 weeks that rearranged everything I thought I understood about my own body. Then a ship, then the Pacific Ocean, then the coast of Korea in the winter of 1950. And I stepped off that landing craft into water so cold it felt like my legs had been replaced with wooden posts. The man to my left was Tommy Briggs from Akron. We'd met on the ship coming over. He played cards like he was born to cheat at it, and he could make you laugh even when everything around you was miserable. Tommy became my best friend in about 3 days flat. That matters to the story. Remember Tommy. December 1950. The Chosin Reservoir. If you know that name, you know what's coming. If you don't, I'll tell you. It was one of the coldest, hardest, most brutal fights of the entire Korean War. Temperatures dropped to 30, 40 below zero. The Chinese had surrounded us, tens of thousands of them coming in waves in the dark, blowing these horns that I can still hear if I let myself get too quiet. You never forget a sound like that. We'd been dug in for days. My boots had frozen solid. My rations were frozen solid. Everything was frozen solid except the fear, which stayed warm somehow. Tommy and I were in a foxhole together on the third night. No moon. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, which, as it turned out, was relevant. "You hear that?" Tommy said. I heard it. They came fast, faster than you'd expect men to move in that kind of cold. There was shooting, there was shouting, there was confusion. And I'm not going to glamorize it for you or make it sound like something out of the movies, because it wasn't like that. It was terrifying, and it was chaos, and men were screaming. At some point, I couldn't tell you exactly when, I felt something hit my right hand. Not a bullet. Shrapnel. A piece of something, I never did find out exactly what, about the size of a $50, had cut into the meat of my palm and done some damage I couldn't assess in the dark. I kept going. You do. You don't stop because you're hurt. You stop when it's over or when you can't go anymore. It was over, finally, sometime around 300. Tommy was beside me. He was okay. I looked at my hand, and in the gray light I could see it was bad. "That's bad, Walt," Tommy said. He wasn't wrong. They got me to a field hospital the next afternoon. It wasn't much, a series of tents heated by stoves that could barely take the edge off the cold. Everything smelled like antiseptic and burned metal, and something else I won't name. There were men on cots in every direction, men in far worse shape than me. A medic wrapped my hand tighter and told me to wait, so I waited. The surgeon came to me eventually. His name, I read it off his jacket, was Dr. Paul Hennessy, Captain Hennessy. He looked young, younger than I expected. Dark circles under his eyes that told you he hadn't slept in a long time, maybe days. His hands were steady, though. I noticed that first thing. Steady and careful. He unwrapped my hand. He didn't say anything for what felt like a long time. The shrapnel had cut deep into the palm, damaged some of the tendons, and there was an infection already beginning. You could see it in the color of the skin around the wound. This angry, dark red spreading out from the center like a map of somewhere terrible. He looked at me. "How long ago?" he said. "Last night," I said, "somewhere around midnight." He turned my hand very gently in both of his, examined each finger, pressed carefully in certain places, and watched my face when he did. "Can you feel that?" he said. "Yes." "That?" "Yes." He set my hand down, and he stood up straight, and he looked at me with this expression I couldn't fully read. And I thought, I was absolutely certain, that he was about to tell me the hand had to come off, that the infection had moved too far, that there was nothing else to do. I was 20 years old. I wanted to beg him. I almost did. I said, "Doc, is it—" He held up a hand to stop me. He turned to a nurse and spoke quietly for a moment. Then he came back. "I'm going to save the hand," he said. Just like that. No drama. No long speech. "It's going to take some work, and you're going to need to fight the infection. And I'm not going to pretend this is nothing. But I'm going to save it." I couldn't speak. He saved it. 4 hours of surgery, more antibiotics than I knew the Army had, and 3 weeks recovering in a hospital in Japan. He saved every finger. He saved the grip. He saved the hand that would one day hold my wife's hand at the altar, that would lift my children, that would do 75 more years of living. Captain Hennessy. I never saw him again. I've looked. I've tried to find out what happened to him. I never could. But if somehow, somewhere, anyone watching this knows that name, Dr. Paul Hennessy, U.S. Army Surgeon, Korea, 1950, I need his family to know. He saved more than a hand that day. I came home in 1951, Ohio. The same small town, the same church, the same school, the same gas station with the fishing bait. But I wasn't the same kid who'd left. My father met me at the door. He shook my hand, the saved hand, the right one, and held it for a moment. He looked at the scar across the palm. He didn't say anything about it. He just nodded. I understood. I married a woman named Ruth the following year. We had 3 kids. I worked for 30 years at a manufacturing plant outside of Dayton. I coached Little League. I went to church. I shoveled my neighbors' driveways in winter because that's what you did. Normal life. Except nothing's fully normal when you've been where I've been. I had nights, bad ones. I still hear those horns sometimes, right at the edge of sleep. Tommy Briggs came home too. We kept in touch until he passed in 2019.
90 years old. We talked on the phone most Sundays for 68 years.
I held a phone for a long time after they told me. I'm 95 years old, and I want you to understand something that took me most of those years to learn. The people who save you, they don't always know they saved you. Captain Hennessy went back to his next patient that day. He probably did that surgery a dozen more times before the week was out. He was just doing his job. But there's no version of my life, no Ruth, no children, no grandchildren, none of it, without that one young doctor choosing to try instead of quit. Somebody in your life has been that person for you. Maybe you know who it is. Maybe you don't. Don't wait 70 years to think about it. I nearly lost a hand. I didn't. And every single morning for the last 7 decades, I've looked at this palm, these scars, these fingers, and I've thought about what it means to be on the receiving end of someone else's effort. Someone who was tired. Someone who had every reason to take the easy way, and didn't. Be that person for someone. That's all. That's the whole story.